The next section of your textbook discusses molecular polarity. Here, you'll continue with your learning goals, where we use the VSEPR theory to predict the geometry of a molecule, and then based on its three-dimensional shape, we should be able to determine whether the molecule is polar or nonpolar and show the direction of a net dipole. So we're looking at polar and nonpolar polyatomic molecules here. In the previous slideshow, we looked at what happened when we had a diatomic molecule, i.e. only two atoms involved. And there, if the bond is a polar covalent bond, then the entire molecule will have a dipole. It's a little more complicated with polyatomic molecules. So diatomic molecules are polar when their atoms have sufficiently different electronegativities. And we calculated the difference in electronegativity, and if the difference was greater than 0.5 but less than 1.7, we would say they had a polar covalent bond and they were a polar molecule. But polyatomic molecules, on the other hand, can also exhibit polar qualities if they have net dipoles. And the trick is to figure out if that case exists. So some nonpolar molecules have polar bonds, but do not have a net dipole due to the arrangement of atoms in a molecule. So a polar molecule is any molecule that has a net dipole, whereas a nonpolar molecule is a molecule that has only nonpolar bonds or a bond dipole sum of 0. So here, table 1, we look at types of molecular structures that have polar bonds but no net dipoles. So we've got three general types that meet these conditions: linear molecules with two identical bonds, planar molecules with three identical bonds, or tetrahedral molecules with four identical bonds. In each of these cases, the net dipole in the molecule will be 0. So the general example with two identical bonds, even if these bonds are polar covalent bonds and would have a bond dipole, you notice that the bond dipole actually cancels out because it's in opposite directions. So the molecule has no net dipole. In the planar molecule, there are three bond dipoles, but again, because this is planar, they're flat, the forces would cancel out, and that gives us a nonpolar molecule with no net dipole. The final example here is the tetrahedral molecule. And you notice there are four bond dipoles. It's probably helpful to think of the string example that we used in class. So when we had the four strings and you pulled them off in equivalent directions, if each person was tugging equally on the strings, the center knot wouldn't move. So the center atom has no net dipole. The forces are balanced. Now, in order to predict the polarity of molecules, we have 4 steps. In step 1, we draw a simplified Lewis structure. You need to keep the lone pairs of electrons, particularly on the central atom, but we can simplify the structure by showing bonding pairs as lines. We then use VSEPR theory to predict the three-dimensional structure and draw a diagram. In step 3, we figure out the electronegativity of each atom and determine partial charges in the molecule. After doing that, we can draw in bond dipoles and then determine whether the molecule has a net dipole. So there's 2 examples I'd like to look at with you. One is tetrafluoromethane and the other is ammonia. So in step 1, we draw the simplified Lewis structure of tetrafluoromethane. So we'll put carbon in the center because it has the highest bonding capacity. I surround it with fluorines. And then I need to figure out how many electrons I have to work with. So carbon contributes 4 valence electrons, and each fluorine atom contributes 7 valence electrons. So there's 4 of them, so 7 times 4. So this gives me a total of 32 electrons. We take the electrons and we place them one pair between each pair of atoms as our first step. And those represent our bonding electrons. So that takes care of 8 electrons, and that's going to leave me with 24 electrons. I then start placing electrons around the outer atoms until they have a stable octet. After having done that, I can see that I have used up all 32 electrons, and I double check to make sure that each atom in the molecule has a stable octet. So you notice each fluorine atom is surrounded by 8 electrons, and likewise the carbon is also surrounded by 8 electrons. So now I can turn this diagram into a simplified Lewis structure by using lines to represent my bonding pairs. Like so. Now, it mentioned keeping the lone pairs of electrons. This is really important when they exist on the central atom, but they don't really have an impact on the shape when they're on the outer atoms. So definitely keep them on the center atom, but they won't impact the shape of the molecule, the ones that are on the fluorine. Now that I know the shape of now that I see the simplified Lewis structure, I use this information to generate a shape and to draw my molecule. So there, we know that when we've got a central atom surrounded by four bonding pairs of electrons, or 4 electron domains, we get a tetrahedral shape. So to draw that, I use straight lines to show that the bonds that are on the same plane as the paper screen, a dotted line to represent going back into the screen, and a solid triangle to represent coming out of the screen at you. So there's my tetrahedral shape. Then I need to look at the electronegativity of each atom. So I can look this up on my periodic table. Fluorine has an electronegativity of 4.0. Carbon, on the other hand, has an electronegativity of 2.5. So if I look at the difference in electronegativity between 4 and 2.5, I get a difference of 1.5, which tells me I've got a polar covalent bond. So the fluorine, with its higher electronegativity, winds up with a partial negative charge, each of the fluorine atoms. And carbon, on the other hand, gets a partial positive charge. Now that I know the charges, I can fill in my bond dipoles. So my bond dipole needs to show that fluorine is negative and carbon is positive, or partially negative and partially positive, and we show that with the arrow. The tip of the arrows have to point towards the fluorines. Now when I look at this molecule, I notice that all 4 of my arrows are equally spread out and pulling on the carbon equally, which means the forces are balanced. So this molecule is considered symmetric, and this is a non-polar molecule. So this non-polar molecule is an example of a non-polar molecule that actually has polar covalent bonds. The other example I'd like to look at is ammonia, NH3. So just like before, we can start by drawing our simplified Lewis structure. So I'll put nitrogen in the center, surrounded by my 3 hydrogens. I need to know how many valence electrons I'm working with. I have 5 valence electrons from the nitrogen and 1 each from the hydrogens, giving me a total of 8 electrons. Like before, I'm going to put a pair between each 2 bonding atoms, and then I check and see how many I have left. So in this case, I have 2 electrons left. I would start by placing those electrons on the outer atoms if needed, but I notice that each hydrogen atom has a bonding pair, so 2 electrons, and hydrogen is stable with 2 electrons. So I can take those last 2 electrons and put them on nitrogen, giving it a stable octet. Next, I'll take my Lewis structure and simplify it, while keeping the lone pair. Because they are on the central atom, they will impact the shape. And to draw in the shape of our ammonia, I'm going to show that we have 1 bond on the plane of the paper, one bond going back into the screen or paper, and one bond coming out of the paper screen at us. I also have a lone pair. Next, I'd like to take a look at the difference in electronegativity. So I look up nitrogen on my periodic table, and it has an electronegativity of 3.0, whereas the hydrogens have an electronegativity of 2.1. Just like before, I can look at the difference in electronegativity, and the difference in electronegativity, 3.0 minus 2.1, is equal to 0.9. So these are polar covalent bonds. Because of that, I can draw on my bond dipoles. Now, nitrogen's more electronegative than hydrogen is, so nitrogen will have a slight negative charge, whereas hydrogen gets slight positive charges. And showing that on my bond dipoles, the arrows all point towards nitrogen. Now, when you look at the shape of this, you notice that due to the differing three angles there, and the fact that while you have a lone pair of electrons up here, these don't have a bond dipole. So this means that overall I get a net dipole on my molecule. And we can draw the net dipole going straight through the center of the molecule, like so. So we call that a net dipole. So now you can see from this example that we have a molecule with polar covalent bonds and a net dipole. So therefore this is a polar molecule. So it's important to note that in this case, two conditions have been met. There are polar covalent bonds and there's a net dipole in place. And that's how come this molecule is polar, whereas the tetrafluoromethane was not polar. This slide's got a flow chart for you to help you go through the steps to realize whether or not a molecule would be a polar molecule. If you start by considering any covalent molecule, you would look at the difference in electronegativity value for each of the bonds within the molecule. If the molecule has only nonpolar covalent bonds, then it has to be a nonpolar molecule. The trick is if the molecule has polar covalent bonds to decide whether or not it's a polar molecule. So the next thing you want to look at is whether the molecule has one bond or more than one bond. If it has only one bond, meaning it's a diatomic molecule, and that bond was a polar covalent bond, the molecule has to be polar. On the other hand, if it has more than one bond, we would call that a polyatomic molecule, then we have to consider the shape of the molecule. If the shape is symmetrical, meaning the molecule has symmetric bonds, and the atoms or groups bonded to the central atom are the same, then this would be a nonpolar molecule. So for example, carbon dioxide or carbon tetrachloride. On the other hand, if the atoms or groups bonded to the central atom are actually different, you can wind up with a polar molecule. So for instance, right here, the dichloromethane, because the chlorine-carbon bond is polar, whereas the carbon-hydrogen bond is nonpolar, you wind up with a dipole in the molecule. On the other hand, if the shape of the molecule is asymmetrical, so for instance, our example with ammonia, we had an asymmetrical molecule, or water also is an asymmetrical molecule, then the molecule is always polar if it has polar covalent bonds. You should be ready now to try the practice questions on page 227, numbers 1 to 3, and page 229, numbers 1 and 2. And as always, you're able to check those answers using the Google Doc. And please fill in the comments on the Google Doc if you have questions about the solutions.